All right, everyone, welcome back. Get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into some, well, let's just say intriguing stuff. We're headed to the Garden of Eden, but not the way you might think.
Sounds interesting already.
Oh, it is. It is. You see, I've got these excerpts and notes, looks like from some religious study course someone sent over, and they really go deep on this idea of a promised Satan conqueror.
A Satan conqueror. I haven't heard that term before.
Right, and that's what caught my eye, too, is like this ancient story, but it touches on something we all kind of crave, even today. You know, this longing for good to win out in the end, justice prevailing, all that.
I can definitely see that. There's something satisfying, almost primal, about seeing a villain get their due, right?
Totally, and it's funny you say that, because this source material actually uses the phrase, bite the dust, when talking about Satan's fate.
Bite the dust. Wow. Yeah, that takes me back. Homer's Iliad all over again.
Right. It's like this echo across time, isn't it? Cultures might change, but that human need to see the bad guy brought down, that's universal.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, why is that? What is it about seeing a powerful enemy defeated that offers us such a sense of hope?
That's a great question. And I think this Garden of Eden story actually offers some clues. What struck me is how much the source emphasizes the serpent's cunning, the deception involved.
Yeah, the way the serpent twists God's words, tempts Eve with that forbidden knowledge.
Yeah.
It's more than just a simple battle of good versus evil, right? There's this layer of trickery involved.
Exactly. And it's not just a snake in the grass either. According to this material, Satan himself is working through the serpent. That takes it to a whole other level.
Right, that's a crucial point. It adds this element of, I don't know, almost like spiritual warfare to the mix.
And then there's the curse on the serpent, remember? Forced to crawl on its belly, eating dust.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But it also feels symbolic, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like this image of being brought low, stripped of power, forced to grovel. It's a powerful visual for sure.
Made me wonder, did snakes really have legs before all this?
Well, that's open to interpretation. Some folks take it literally, others see it more symbolically, like the serpent represents Satan and this curse is about him being defeated.
Defeated. Which brings us to Genesis 3.15. That's where this whole Satan conqueror promise comes in, this bit about the serpent's head being crushed by the offspring of the woman. Now that's what I call a smackdown.
This is where things get really interesting, because that verse, often called the Protoevangelium, it introduces this radical concept of hope, of ultimate victory, right in the aftermath of humanity messing up big time.
So even after the fall, there's this glimmer of good news.
Exactly. It's like the first ray of light piercing through the darkness.
But hold on, who exactly is this offspring? Could it be like all of us, humanity as a whole, fighting back against evil? Or are we talking about one specific person?
Well, the source leans towards a specific individual, a male descendant who'll have a key role in this cosmic battle. And that's what makes it so intriguing, It's like setting the stage for this epic showdown.
Right. Imagine if all we had was this early part of the Bible, just this promise with no further details. The anticipation would be insane. Who is this guy? What will he do? It's like the ultimate cliffhanger.
And that cliffhanger, I think, points to a deeper truth. This promise isn't just about some future event. It's about acknowledging that this struggle between good and evil, it's constant. It's not just in ancient stories. It's happening all around us, even within ourselves.
Whoa. Okay, so how do we connect to this as listeners then? I mean, we might not be dealing with talking snakes, but we all face those moments of temptation, those times when an easy way out appears, even if it might not be the right way.
That's it. That's the connection, that pull towards what seems good, what seems like knowledge or power, even if it comes at a cost. That's a battle we all face in different ways.
So what are we supposed to do about it? We can't exactly just sit around waiting for this mysterious offspring to show up and fix everything, right?
No, absolutely not. And that's where I think this deep dive gets really interesting. So this whole Protoevangelium thing, right?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
It is. It is. But it just means first gospel, or first good news, if you want to break it down.
Yeah.
And when you consider the context, well, it starts to make a lot of sense. I mean, humanity's just fallen from grace, experiencing all those consequences from disobeying, and then boom, there's this promise, this little glimmer of hope right there in the middle of all that darkness.
It's like a beacon in the middle of a storm. But what makes it good news exactly? Is it simply the promise of, ultimate victory, or is there more to it than that?
That's where it gets really fascinating. See, the Protoevangelium isn't just about defeating Satan. It's about, well, think of it like restoring what was lost. It's about God's love for humanity, unwavering even when they rebelled. Like the first hint of this plan for redemption, this bridge across the gap that sin created.
This is not just punishment and victory, it's more like reconciliation and restoration. That adds a whole other level to the story, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and that's the element that's resonated with people through the ages. Different interpretations, sure, but at its heart, it's this message of comfort, of assurance. Things might look bleak now, but God's working behind the scenes to set things right.
Okay, so we've got this profound hope embedded in this Protoevangelium. But let's circle back to this Conqueror. The source is really fixated on this single person, male descendant of Eve. What's so special about that lineage?
Oh, that's a detail that has sparked I don't even know how many debates. One way to look at it is that it highlights the role of women in, well, God's plan for redemption, right? Remember, it's Eve who first interacts with the serpent and sin enters the world through her actions, but then it's also through her lineage that this conqueror will arrive.
So it's like a reversal, a turning point. The consequences of Eve's actions are there,
Yeah.
but her lineage is also the source of hope and restoration. That's pretty neat.
Exactly. And this focus on the woman's lineage, well, it's led some to connect the Protoevangelium to, the concept of the virgin birth, which pops up later in the Bible.
Whoa, now we're getting into some deep theological stuff. But I see what you mean. If this conqueror is meant to be extraordinary, someone who stands apart, then a virgin birth just adds to that, right?
Exactly. And that's part of why this promise has had such a huge impact. So many interpretations, seen as a prophecy fulfilled in different figures. But no matter how you interpret it, the core message is consistent. Evil will be defeated, good will triumph, and humanity will find redemption.
It's crazy how much depth we're finding in just one verse, Genesis 3.15. It's like a little seed with the blueprint for a whole narrative inside, a story that's still unfolding today.
Isn't it amazing? And that's the power of these ancient texts. They're not just historical records. They're like living narratives still speaking to us across time and cultures.
Speaking of cultures, one thing I noticed in the source material is this parallel between the serpent's punishment, having to crawl and eat dust, and what supposedly awaits Satan. It's almost like foreshadowing,
Yeah.
like a glimpse of Satan's ultimate humiliation.
That's a great observation. And it simples back to the idea of hubris that we talked about. The serpent, representing Satan, is brought low because of his pride and deceit. The curse isn't just about punishment. It's about exposing evil's true nature and its inevitable downfall.
So it's not just physical defeat, it's moral and spiritual defeat, too. Satan's exposed as a deceiver, a manipulator, bringing nothing but chaos and suffering.
Exactly. And that leads to a really important question. If the serpent embodies this cunning, seductive nature of evil, how can we as individuals even begin to fight it?
That's the million-dollar question, right? We can't exactly run around looking for literal serpents to slay. So what does resisting evil look like in our world today?
Well, that's where the promise of a Satan conqueror gets even more relevant. It's not about waiting for a hero to swoop in and save the day. It's about recognizing that battle that's happening inside each of us. Those everyday choices we make, good versus evil, truth versus deception, those are the battlegrounds.
So it's this internal struggle, this constant wrestling with temptation, and those easy answers that might lead us down the wrong path. But if the serpent's all about deceit, then knowledge and discernment must be our weapons.
Right. You're getting it. The source material isn't just giving us a promise, it's highlighting how dangerous it is to blindly accept information without questioning, without looking at the motives behind it. Just think about the serpent's tactics. Twisting God's words, planting those seeds of doubt, appealing to Eve's desire for knowledge.
Right. It's like a warning sign saying, hey, be careful about what you believe, even if it sounds good.
Exactly. We need to think critically. Be aware of how easily we can be manipulated, even with the best intentions. And that's where the Protoevangelium offers that glimmer of hope again. It's not just about waiting for a future victory. It's about actively engaging in the struggle against evil, starting with our own thoughts, choices, and actions.
So the Protoevangelium is both a promise and a challenge. It's reassuring to know that evil will be defeated, but it also calls on us to participate in that victory, to be vigilant and discerning and courageous in our daily lives.
You've got it. And that brings us back to who this offspring might be. The source seems to point to a specific person, this male descendant, who'll be key in this cosmic battle. But if we zoom out, look at the bigger picture, could offspring represent something more than just one person?
You're making me think. Are you suggesting that this offspring could be symbolic of something bigger, something that encompasses all of humanity?
It's definitely worth considering. We've talked about Humanity uniting against evil, collective action, the power of working together for the greater good, right? Maybe the offspring represents the best of humanity, the potential for good that's inside each of us, the capacity for love, compassion, justice, all the things that can overcome the forces of darkness.
That's a powerful thought. It shifts the focus from a single savior to a collective responsibility, recognizing that we all have a role to play in this ongoing struggle. But the source does seem to be leaning towards an individual, right? Like a messianic figure who will eventually confront Satan directly.
True. The text does use he, which points to one figure, and it does align with the idea of a chosen one, a savior who will deliver humanity from evil. But maybe it doesn't have to be either, right? Maybe it's both. Maybe this promised conqueror is both the specific individual, A-N-D, a symbol for humanity's combined potential for good.
Okay, so we've got this interesting back and forth between the individual and the collective, the personal and the universal. The promise of a Satan conqueror working on multiple levels, making us think about our individual responsibility and our collective potential at the same time. But let's bring it back down to earth a bit. The source mentioned something that I found really interesting, the idea that the serpent, even though he's defeated, manages to strike a blow against the conqueror, bruising his heel.
Ah, yes. The serpent's last act of defiance. It reminds us that even in victory, there will be suffering, a cost. The battle against evil leaves its marks,
And it underlines the fact that this conqueror, whether it's one person or humanity's potential for good, whoever or whatever it is, they're not immune to pain and suffering, especially when you're going up against evil like that.
Exactly. It adds a layer of reality to the story, acknowledging that the path to victory isn't always easy or painless. Even the most noble endeavors involve sacrifice and hardship.
It's like a call to be brave, to stand up for what's right, even if it comes at a price, because the ultimate victory is worth it.
You've put it perfectly. The promise of a Satan conqueror isn't a guarantee of a comfortable life free from struggle. It's a call to action, an invitation to join the fight, to stand beside those working to bring light into the darkness.
So it's not about sitting back and waiting for someone else to save the day. It's about rolling up our sleeves and getting involved in the battle however we can.
That's it. And that leads us to a crucial question. If the serpent represents that cunning and seductive nature of evil, and if this promise of a conqueror calls us to action, then what are the practical steps we can take to resist evil in our modern world?
That's a big question, and I think it deserves its own deep dive. But before we wrap up our exploration of this Protoevangelium, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why this ancient promise still resonates with people today, even those who might not follow a specific religion.
That's a great question, and I think it has to do with the universal themes woven into the story. This struggle between good and evil, the consequences of choices, the longing for redemption, the hope for a better future. These are concepts that go beyond specific belief systems. They resonate with the human experience at a very fundamental level.
So even if someone doesn't interpret the story literally, they can still find meaning in those archetypal themes, those timeless truths about the human condition that it reveals.
Exactly. And that's why the Garden of Eden story, along with this promise of a Satan conqueror, continues to fascinate and inspire people from all walks of life. It's a story that speaks to our deepest fears and aspirations, our longing for justice, our desire for meaning, and our hope for a world where good ultimately prevails.
As we've been going through this whole promise of a Satan conqueror, it's really hit me that this isn't just about some victory way off in the future. It's like right now, right here, we're being called to step up, confront evil wherever we find it.
You got it. This Protoevangelium isn't just sitting back and waiting. It's an invitation to be part of this whole redemption story, actively shaping it. But if we're going to fight, we got to know what we're up against. And the source really hammers home how crafty, how subtle that serpent is.
Right, like a heads up, like, hey, evil isn't always going to be obvious. It can be sneaky. It hides. It uses our own desires against us.
Exactly. Remember how that serpent approached Eve? No force, no threats, just questions, twisting things around, playing on her curiosity. Makes you realize we got to be sharp, question what we hear, be suspicious of those too good to be true promises.
It's like we need some kind of sixth sense for spotting that manipulation, those little whispers of doubt that can lead us down a bad path.
Love that. Cultivate a healthy skepticism, right? Be willing to look at the motives behind the message, be critical, even of sources we usually trust. And that ties back into forbidden knowledge too, doesn't it? Serpent tempts Eve with becoming like God, having this secret knowledge, but Real knowledge, the kind that leads to wisdom. It's not about power trips. It's about searching for truth, even when it's tough or makes us question what we thought we knew.
So it's not about rejecting knowledge outright, it's being choosy. Seeking knowledge that fits our values, that helps everyone. But man, how do we even know which path to pick these days? Especially with info coming at us from every direction.
That's where the Conqueror promise gives us some direction. It's not just about a future win. It's about choosing good right now. Making choices that show compassion, that are fair, that help build a world where everyone can thrive. And those choices, they might look different for each of us, depending on our own situations and talents.
So no one-size-fits-all rulebook, huh?
Yeah.
It's more like developing our own internal compass, a sense of right and wrong to guide us.
Precisely. And that's where the offspring idea gets really potent. Whether we see it as one person, like a messiah figure, or as representing all the good humanity is capable of, it reminds us we're not in this alone, part of a bigger story, one that's still being written, and we each have a role to play in how it ends.
That's pretty empowering, isn't it? Not waiting around, but realizing we each have the power to make a difference, to tip the scales towards good.
Absolutely. That's why this Protoevangelium, this first good news, it still matters today. It speaks to our deepest hopes for a just world where love wins, where darkness is defeated. But it's also a wake-up call. We're not just watching this play out, we're in it. Our choices matter, they have consequences, and we can all be a force for good.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've gone from the beginning of this ancient promise, unpacked all its layers, and found out how relevant it still is today. It pushes us to think critically, to act bravely, and never give up hope, even when things get dark.
And it encourages us to keep digging deeper, keep questioning, keep chasing after truth, even when it's hidden.
So to all you deep divers out there, as you go through life with all its twists and turns, remember what we've learned here. Be smart, be brave, and be a force for good in the world.
And never underestimate the power of even small acts of kindness, speaking the truth, and holding on to hope.
That's all for this deep dive, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep on exploring.